Hello guys, we are back with our next lecture. In this lecture, let us go through different data structures in compiler, guys. So basically, till now we discussed about multiple phases and all those things, right? Yes. So basically, to store those all the things which we are creating intermediately and all those things, we need some kind of data structures, right? So to store them, literally to be clear, right? Yes. So the first thing which we'll be discussing is nothing but symbol table, guys. In our future lectures, in one I think in around fourth or fifth unit, we'll be discussing in detail about symbol table, guys, like how it is represented and what are the different ways. But here we'll be just discussing some introduction, guys, to be clear. Okay. Okay. So the symbol table stores the information about the program identifiers that will be across all phases of compiler. So basically, in each and every phase, we might require the details of the identifiers, right? Yes. So the details of the identifiers, in simple words, you can say about the identifiers, guys. So identifier name and the metadata about the identifiers are stored in this symbol table, guys. Okay. So this symbol table will be filled by the first three phases, guys. Okay. So the lexical analysis is the first phase, right? I hope everyone remembers that. Lexical analysis, syntax analysis, and semantic analysis. These are the first three phases. And among these three, the first phase, that is nothing but lexical analyzer phase, is the first phase, and that is responsible for filling and creating the symbol table, guys. So basically that is the first phase, right? So that is the reason. So that phase creates the symbol table, guys. Okay. So symbol table is a data structure that contains a record for each identifier with the fields for the attributes of its identifier. So the fields could be name of the variable, it's a constant, or whatever it is. Okay. So we'll be taking an example, guys. So don't get confused with these things. It's really simple, guys. So symbol table has a facility to manipulate, add, or delete any element, right? Yes. So a symbol table example we have just drawn here, guys. So x is equals to a plus b into 20. Okay. So symbol is nothing but x is equals to a plus b into 20. So x, the category which it comes under is identifier, is equals to is an operator, a is equals to a is an identifier, plus is an operator, b is an identifier, x is an operator, 20 is a constant, right? Yes. So because 20 is a constant number, we are writing it as constant. Okay. So x is of a type of float. Assume that it is given specified. Similarly, a is also type float, b is also type float. And similarly, 20 is clearly an integer. Okay. So identifier. So here we are having multiple identifiers, right? We are having three different identifiers. So let us, for our better understanding, let us assume it with some subscripts. So ID1, ID2, ID3 and ID4. Okay. So operation is nothing but assignment. Operation is nothing but addition. Operation is nothing but multiplication. Okay. So I hope everyone remembers that whenever you are creating an integer variable or any kind of variable, so some particular space is allocated for it, right? Might be 2 bytes or 4 bytes or 1 byte, right? Yes. So based on that memory, the locations are also generated, guys. So basically for identifiers, you need locations, whereas an operator and for even constants also, there is no need of space, guys, because constant is a fixed value. Whatever you do, the value of 20 is fixed. So that is the reason why there is no need to store it anywhere specifically, guys. You can just carry the value, right? Whereas here you can update them, you can do multiple operations on them. So that is the reason why memory locations are mandatory. Okay. Yes. So scanner or lexical analyzer, parser and semantic analyzer helps to fill the above table. So basically step by step these table will be filled. So to be specific, this type will be filled by the semantic analyzer, guys. It will be checking for type checking and all those things and will be filling it. So in that way, like step by step, it will be filling the whole table, guys. Okay. Okay. So similarly, we are having a literal table also, guys. So few might be confusing that what is this literal table now? So basically literal table is a small part of symbol table, you can say, guys. So literal table is also a data structure used in compiler. It is nothing but a small part of a symbol table. Okay. So literals are nothing but the numbers or constants, guys, and strings, whatever are fixed will be stored here. So literal table maintains the details of constant or strings. Okay. So here it is. Literal table maintains the details of constants or strings. Literal 60, category is a constant, attribute is int, and memory location. So in this way it will be representing, guys. Okay. So I hope everyone got clear idea about the symbol table and the literal table. Okay. So let us continue with the parse tree. Okay. So parse tree, it is a dynamically allocated pointer based structure. Okay. So it describes the syntactic structure of the input. it parses the terminal node representing the tokens and internal node representing the expression. So basically parse tree, I hope everyone knows what is a parse tree, right? Yes. So basically parse tree is nothing but the tree representation or a graphical representation of an expression, guys. So basically if there is an expression 4 plus 2 into 3 and a particular grammar is given, so grammar is nothing but some kind of steps, guys. So basically E gives E plus a T. So in simple words you can say, just give me a second, guys. Okay, so basically here the given grammar is a E tends to E plus T, right? So in this way, guys. So E's children are E plus T. Similarly, this is nothing but OR symbol, right? So E's children can be E minus T also. And E's children can directly be T also. Similarly, T's children can be, so T's, I'll be representing here itself, guys. T's children can be in this way, star F. Or T's children can be F directly. And F's children can be directly A. Or F's children can be bracket open E and bracket close. So in this way. So these are nothing but the grammar rules, you can say, guys. So using this grammar rules, we will be constructing the parse tree, guys. So we here our requirement is 4 plus 2 into 3, right? Okay, so let me write it here. 4 plus 2 into 3. Okay, so that is our requirement, right? Okay, so here for parse trees you will always be using bottom up parsing, guys. Okay, so here initially you need to calculate 2 into 3, right? Yes. So write 2 into 3 on one side, guys. Okay, so basically you can directly start from top also, but it will be easy if you start from bottom, guys. Okay, so here you need 2 and here we need 3, right? Yes. So where star is there? Okay, so for our easy understanding, I'll be coming from top down only, guys, because that will be easy for these kind of problems. So initially let us start from E. So initially let us take E plus T. Okay, so from T here we need plus, right? So this part we got here, and now let us break this T into multiplication part. So T can be converted into T into F. So T into F. Okay, so now F can be converted directly into a constant number. So assume that the constant number is 3, and T can be converted into F and F can be converted into 2. Okay, similarly E can be converted into T and T can be converted into F and F can be converted into 4. So 4 plus 2 into 3. So in this way, guys. So in this way the parse tree can be constructed, guys. Okay. Okay, so I hope everyone got some basic idea about the parse tree. So these kind of trees can be represented using the data structures like linked list or anything, guys. Okay. Okay, similarly abstract syntax tree. So basically syntax trees are nothing but the mini version or the compressed version of parse tree, guys. So if you remove all these grammar rules, so for these kind of syntax trees, bottom up parsing will be easy, guys. Like bottom up representation will be easy. So 4 plus 2 into 3, right? Okay, so first let us calculate 2 into 3. Okay, and for this let us add 4. That's it. So this is the simple representation of the syntax tree, guys. Okay. Okay, so that will be represented in this way. So a compressed version of parse tree. Okay, so these kind of things can also be represented. Similarly, intermediate code. So the code may be kept as an array of text string or a linked list structure or a temporary text file based on the intermediate code type. So basically whenever we are converting from whenever we are doing the compilation process, we will be getting an intermediate code, right? So you need to store that also. So for that also you need to use some data structure, right? So that could be a string of long length of array, or you can even store it in a text file based on your requirements, right? Yes. Similarly, whenever we are creating any kind of temporary variables or anything, we need temporary files, right? Yes. So basically these temporary files will be helping you to store the intermediate code. Okay. Yes. So I hope everyone got some basic idea about all the phases and all the data structures which can be used. So in the next lecture, we will be going through the issues in compiler construction, guys. Okay. Okay. So let us meet in the next lecture. Thank you. Thanks for watching.